Good afternoon. You're welcome to today's episode of Tech Talk with me, Kazeem. And our topic today is going to be Azure Arc Deep Dive. And I have Chris Black with me today to help us understand today's topic better. Hi, Chris, and welcome to the Tech Talk Show.
Hi, Kazeem. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
So, like we always do, let's begin things with an introduction, Chris. Let's get to learn a little bit about you. Who is Chris and what do you do for a living?
Yeah, that's going to be the most boring part of the show, I'm sure, because no one really cares who I am. It's all about the tech. But yeah, my name is Chris Black, and I'm an Azure MVP, and I've been working on this phenomenal product called Azure Stack Hub for a number of years now. Fell in love with the tech, and it kind of my career propelled from there, really. And my day job is literally Azure Stack Hub at the moment. And so let's talk about stuff.
Okay, so Chris, Azure Arc has almost become an household name now. But just for the benefit of those hearing Azure Arc for the very first time, do you mind to help us define what it is? What is Azure Arc and what are the benefits of using Azure Arc?
So it's not that easy to define really what it is because it's so many things now. When we first seen it at Ignite Orlando 2019, it was just the three pillars that they introduced. They had a demo of a server management, then they had Kubernetes and data services, but it's evolved so much. But it's I think the goal of the product is to bring this nirvana of IT. If you talk about anyone who worked in IT for more than like 10, 15 years, everyone wanted single pane of glass management. Everyone wanted just to log into one thing and they can manage pretty much the whole infrastructure from anywhere. And that's pretty much what Azure Arc is trying to do. And on top of that, it's trying to bring Azure services to on-premises. It's all about the hybrid, the multi-cloud, bringing under one roof, under one umbrella, and give you this single view that you can manage your servers, containers, or any other PaaS or SaaS solutions that are available, and that we keep adding more and more. So yeah, it's like a management through Azure portal of things that are either on-prem or in other cloud providers like, not sure if I'm allowed to say the GCPs and AWSs, but it's in the Microsoft docs. So yeah, I guess so. And now they're adding VMware as well. So you can manage vSphere VMware solutions through Azure Arc. It's just, I think at one point it will become what it doesn't do, what it isn't, than what it is, because there's so much stuff that it can do. It's phenomenal. I mean, I looked at the product then in 2019 and I thought already, well, this is the winner. Like Microsoft came up with a thing that everyone wanted, like I already said, and it looks like it will be done well. And look how it grew already. It's been just literally a handful of years, and the product matured so much. Well, there are still lots of the integrations are in previews in one way or another, but it's still what it can do already is phenomenal.
But I know we also have things like the Azure Arc Stack family of products, right? The Azure Stack Edge, the HCI, the Hub. But maybe we focus on the Hub for now, right? So what is the Azure Stack Hub and how is the Hub different from Azure Arc? Do you want to help us understand this quickly?
Sure. So Azure Stack Hub in general, it's the black box appliance that you deploy with the partnership of the OEM vendor. There's a couple to choose from. It's a hyper-converged infrastructure, pretty much based on the same technologies for the most part as the Azure Stack HCI. It's just you've got your Windows Server underlying it, 2019 currently. You have your storage spaces direct, and you have your software-defined networking. And on top of it, you've got the magic sauce from Azure, which is the Azure Resource Manager. And then it creates a tiny, as I like to say, tiny Azure region anywhere or in your data center. It was designed to bring services like Azure services to places that just don't have them. Because, well, again, at the time when it was first launched, I think we had like 50, 52 Azure regions. I don't know how many we've got now. I think probably close to 70, if not more, because they seem to be popping up left, right, and center. Which is still, I think it's still the biggest in terms of how many regions in terms of the the hyperscaler cloud. And then still, it's not everywhere. Like if you look at the map, where are there's still quite a few big, even continents, let alone countries, where there isn't Azure, right? So that was supposed to bring those Azure services closer to where you are, to meet the customers where they are. It's all about the edge and a hybrid story. So it's not that dissimilar to Arc in that respect, because again, Arc is to bring those services anywhere, but it's slightly different in a way that with Arc, you have to have the connectivity. Like it needs to talk back to Azure because Azure is your central governing piece. Like you log into the portal.azure.com and from there you do stuff. Whereas Hub is being its own tiny Azure region, as I say. It's got its own portals and segregation of tenant and user, so tenant and admin. So your operators have their own separate portals that they log into and manage the infrastructure. Because again, at the end of the day, the tiny Azure region is hardware. We still have to have servers, even though people will say, "Oh, it's the cloud." It is the cloud, but at the end of the day, someone needs to deploy servers and manage them, and that falls into people like myself at the moment to manage those things. And Arc doesn't have any of that, right? Arc is literally a software piece that helps you govern your existing infrastructure, whatever that may be. And Hub is just that infrastructure. And if you think about why is it tiny, because if you think about Azure region, I think that the smallest deployment of an Azure region would be like 1,000 servers. And that's just like the first tiny fraction of it. And then they build it more and it goes to probably tens of thousands of massive data centers and whatnot. Whereas Hub you deploy with its minimum deployment is 4-node system. So if you just think about it, 1,000 versus 4, you can also understand, hopefully, if you've worked in IT in any capacity, there's going to be a subset of features. It's not full Azure region converged into or compressed even to 4 nodes. It does quite a lot of it. Infrastructure as a service, some PaaS services. You've got that you can deploy. Some of it comes pre-installed, some of it doesn't. You've got a Key Vault, for example, comes with it. But if you wanted to do some AKS, for example, the Azure Kubernetes service, it's a separate piece. So you have to download the image and do a little bit more extra work for it, which I'm sure we'll get to the Kubernetes services in general because it's another exciting thing. And there's a lot of similarities and differences between the deployment on Hub and what you would either do in Azure or through Azure Arc. But yeah, it's a completely different take on doing pretty much the exact same thing. It's bringing the Azure services and Azure resources close to you, I think.
I was going to ask you about some use cases, right, for Azure Arc Stack, but you already touched on a little bit of that already. So I'm going to jump.
So I would only add to it that the other major difference is what I already talked about is the connectivity. Like Azure Stack Hub can be deployed in completely fully disconnected scenarios. Okay. And that's what makes it not only unique on the market, but also such an extraordinary product. That Arc, like I said, cannot work without internet, but Hub can. There are obviously limitations that come with it on top of it, sure, because you have to decide, I want to deploy it disconnected or connected, and then you use ADFS services versus Azure AD, and there's lots of other differences that come even just by choosing a different deployment. But it works into those different use cases when people, at least, I don't know if it's just like a running joke or if it's the truth, because I haven't spoken to those customers, but I'm sure they exist, like putting in submarines, oil rigs, when there is very limited, if any, internet connectivity or proximity to Azure. It's whole trying to fix that issue with the edge computing in general, where we have, well, first of all, we have compliance and regulatory things that we need to look at, plus the speed of light that we can't break still. Like some data needs to be closer to you, it needs to be processed first before it can be sent to Azure, or it will never be sent to Azure because Hub will allow you to do some of that intelligence, if you will, that because it's tiny Azure region, it's got a lot of power behind it and a lot of smart things that you can do with it, especially when you start using AKS, which has got its own version and deployment system, which is the AKS engine, as opposed to AKS service, which it doesn't make any sense because AKS service, but just bear with me. it's okay. Kind of, it's the way that it is, naming conventions slightly odd in this instance, but yeah, it once you start using containers and Hub fully supports those with the native integration with AKS, you can pretty much do anything. So it's down to a customer and individual use cases to utilize that power. But the flexibility is something that no other product, and it's both Microsoft and other companies haven't come up with something that would let something big. Like there is no product that will do a tiny AWS region that could be disconnected, or Google. They have similar products. I'm not going to mention those just because this is a Microsoft thing, but they do have products, but they don't actually work without having them fully managed through their own respective big sisters, or if you will, their own portals. Azure Stack Hub comes with its own management plane, which slightly takes away of how much capacity you have left. But the benefits of it are that it's all contained. It's all just one box that you can deploy and then manage and enjoy having Azure services, literally in this case anywhere, for as long as you have power. If you don't have power, well, we don't have powerless compute yet, but who knows what's next for the IT industry. Maybe that's the next thing.
Yes, Chris. So I'm going to ask you next, Chris. You know, there are several hybrid offerings now from Microsoft, right? And sometimes it can just be a little challenging for people new to cloud, right? People in IT new to cloud computing to catch up on which of the offering does what, you know.
It is, yes. I agree.
Yes.
It's challenging to sometimes even for me to find out what is the best use case, and those seems to be changing as well. But I think the good starting point is obviously Microsoft documentation. It's all I love the fact that it's open source and everyone can submit their own pull request and make changes to it and propose even full documents. And I've done a lot of that for Hub in the recent history, and maybe not as much as I would have liked lately, but initially done a lot of that. If you see a mistake on it, you can submit that, yeah, well, I think this is wrong, maybe we should change it. And currently now there's so much resources on those websites now that you can just go and find. Then another amazing tool to keep track of it, I know it will sound crazy, but Twitter, if you follow the right people, then you can find out what is what, because people blog about it, people do videos, people do podcasts like what we are just trying to do to help. But if you just, you know, if you're trying to do it all by yourself and just go and Binging it or Googling it, I had to say Bing, just like in Microsoft. But if you're trying to find information, could be a little challenging. But that's why I would start with Microsoft Docs, and at least from there you would have a nice understanding and overview. And I've prepared a couple of links, quite a few in fact, that we're going to share hopefully with this podcast or later on, or however we're going to do it once it's out there. You will have at least some starting points of what I think is good to have a look at. So okay. I don't know if it answers the question, but yeah, it's really hard. I'm not gonna lie. We have so many new products coming out. Even if you just look at Ignite itself, which just concluded this month, and we had so many new capabilities that are added to different products. Products get renamed constantly, like literally Azure Stack Hub was an Azure Stack Hub until 2019, because it was just Azure Stack and there was nothing else. Then we had the HCI and Edge being added, so Hub needed to change name, and now it's Azure Stack Hub. Now we have a family of products, and and who knows where we go from there. We might have a fourth thing added to Azure Stack family. I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Maybe it will all be renamed to something else. It's very challenging, I'd say. But yeah, Docs, Googling, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I think also, if you follow the right people, the people just pump a lot of information there. That's how I keep up with it. If you can believe it. It's become my lens through I look at the announcements and the products. It's just like trying to find a blog or a website or a document like Microsoft Docs that I'm referring to in this particular instance. And there's a lot of community stuff that's being put out there. There's even too much, but if you follow the right people and try to at least filter through some of the noise, then you'll be good to go. Yeah. We just had I need to give it a big shout out because it's phenomenal. The challenge, the Ignite challenge for Microsoft Learn platform, that you can. I still have like 4 days still that you can still do it. So if you watch it quick and do it, you can get a free certificate, or not certificate, but the voucher for the exam to get a certificate from Microsoft. And there's quite a few learning paths that you can go through and learn phenomenal things. They have recorded videos from people like Sarah, who now just left Microsoft, but let's talk about that. Thomas and other people from the community as well. You would recognize the voices, which I thought was quite funny because I just went through mine, and because I did the challenge as well. I literally just I think finished yesterday or the day before, and I watched the videos, and the people I just know I spoke to, I actually met in real life. Some of them, if not most of them. It's kind of surreal experience, but there's a phenomenal resource. A great shout out. Yeah, I kind of bundle this with the docs in general because they will redirect you to some of those. But yeah, Microsoft Learn, phenomenal, and with the free certificates, well, again, I call it certificates, free exam vouchers. What a great scheme! Whoever came up with it, hats off to you. Amazing. That's how the knowledge spreads, right? We talk about the cool stuff. We see how much Microsoft puts out of the information and knowledge, and then an extra incentive. Not that you needed one. If you're a geek like me or a nerd, whichever you prefer, I don't discriminate. Then it's already you kind of know this stuff, but you want to learn more. You want to find out examples. There are like videos that you can do hands-on labs as well. Some of them have literally just will link to your trial Azure subscription, which you can still do, and then have access to Azure for a couple of minutes and do an actual exercise, run some PowerShell, run some Azure CLI commandlets, have the better feel for the product. I mean, how cool is that? Like when 15, 20 years ago, when I was starting doing this job, we had none of that, right? We just like
exactly. So
buy
we
a
have to
book
pay a lot of money, to learn some of those things back then, and there's just so much of information out there right now. There are two more questions I'd like to ask you that I'd like to get your take on. One of them is the Azure Arc Kubernetes cluster. So let's talk about that for just a little bit now. What kind of problems do you see that the Azure Arc Kubernetes clusters help us solve?
So just before we go into what it solves, like the containers in general, we need to talk about that for a little while. So this is some would say it's a new thing, new kid on the block. I'd say it's been around for enough time now that it's maybe not as new, but containerization in general, and then now the orchestration for those containers, which is it's an example being AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, is pretty much an orchestration engine for a lot of containers. And having the ability to containerize applications makes them portable, right? We can take the code and move it pretty much anywhere. We can run it anywhere. But if you wanted to do it in a secure way, if you wanted to be able to still patch it, make sure that everything is configured correctly, or even just to deploy it in an orchestrated manner, meaning you deploy at scale. You just run Docker on your laptop, which you can still do. Well, good luck to you, but it's not a production system. So this is more like a production or / enterprise grade solution that will guide you through the installation of it. I'm talking about the AKS itself, either on Hub with an E, which is the engine. It will let you, at the end of the day, interact with the platform, create the whole Kubernetes ecosystem for you so you can start utilizing it. But there are still problems even with that, because again, it doesn't automatically patch itself. The reporting out of it, you still have to configure yourself. And however you choose it, there are free tooling. There is free tooling available to do it. But what if you have like 5 or 10 of them already, separate AKSs? That's when the Arc or Kubernetes comes into play to help you with the management of a lot of disparate systems. Again, the single pane of glass, the ability to then do an audit, like you siphon the logs to an analytic workspace. You can see the dashboards there. You can set up alertings for specific logs. If like, are you running out of CPUs or memory, for example, on your pods? All of those things are pretty much now done for you with a nice, amazing templates, and we're going to share a link to the Jumpstart project that help you even deploy. First of all, like if you don't have a Kubernetes cluster, they have templates for Terraform and ARM templates to deploy. First of all, the actual cluster, and then enable the Kubernetes or Arc-enabled Kubernetes services that would help you with the management of it. And then, like I said, the Grafana dashboards, the log analytics, the auto patching and managing of the versions of Kubernetes that you run inside of it. All of that is done now through an amazing Azure portal, and the Jumpstart website that is there. It helps you with all of that. It pretty much guides you through it to the point that's like scrolling down to 20 or 50 different screenshots, literally telling you exactly what to expect. It's phenomenal resource, and I said it at Ignite on one of the sessions, and I will say it again. Hopefully, we'll reach more people. Every product should have a jumpstart project like Arc now does, because it's absolutely out of this world amazing. The amount, the sheer power that it gives you, like literally examples that you can take, copy paste, and it will work. And it's just like I wish we had something like that for like when Hub was released or when now HCI. I mean, we have some of that, and I think actually the Jumpstart project has got a lot of stuff for HCI in general because it's very much interlinked now. Arc is the enablement for HCI, and I don't really want to go into that because there will be another 7 hour conversation probably or thereabouts because that's how much stuff it can actually do. But they provide examples for even the AWSs, the Googles, the VMware cloud, you name it. There is probably a template and a step-by-step guide of how to enable it, how to make it happen, and it would help you with the adoption of it, which essentially is managing multiple of those systems in a single pane of glass to give you this extra feel that okay, my security posture is good now. I know where everything is what versions are running. Are there any issues with it? Because again, the logs will tell you vast majority of that. It's just phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
if you have to manage more than one system, that's the way to do it. And it works on any cloud practically, or at least on the big ones. But there may be some that I don't even know exist, but mostly it doesn't really care because again, it interacts with the Kubernetes on a just Kubernetes layer. It doesn't really require anything extra from you. You just install a few pods and they will enable the talk back to Azure and you're off to the races. I mean, it's when we're seeing this all first at Ignite, the 2019 one, I was like, well, that's the end. That's the end for everyone because Microsoft just won. And I told the guys, the engineers, the people who were there, face-to-face conversation, you guys won. That's the end. That's the end of IT. I mean, but in a good way. Like you made a product that I don't see a single human being not wanting to use. I don't know if you shared my my sentiment, but to me, it's absolutely out of this world, extraordinary, and it will do more. Leah,
It's
who
true.
is part of or is pretty much responsible for this Jumpstart project at the latest Ignite, when I was talking to him and
Okay.
Thomas, was mentioning that this is pretty much the beginning. They want to bring every Azure service or as many as they physically can to people. And through that Kubernetes as a starting point engine, that's when the magic happens. When you can take
Yes.
those applications and services, the PaaSes, the SaaS, sexy things that you can have in Azure, and take them anywhere just by leveraging Kubernetes and then the Arc management system of provisioning it, managing it, maintaining it, and then having it in one single portal. The possibilities are endless.
I don't want us to wrap up without touching just a little bit on Azure Data Services, Chris. Why do we need Azure Data Services, and what can Azure Data Services do for us?
We currently have already kind of touched about it a little bit because again, it all leverages AKS. You need to have AKS deployed, so you need to have Kubernetes deployed somewhere. I don't think it necessarily needs to be AKS in general, but if we talk in Azure, then AKS is the preferred product. So you need some Kubernetes or KAS in general
Yeah.
deployed, and then it's literally like any other service. You deploy your Azure managed instances. Like that's the first service that is available there, and the second one we have is the Postgres hyperscale. So currently, again, only two. But if you still think about it, the first time they showed it on AWS. We had literally SQL Microsoft instances managed through Azure Portal running on the EKS clusters in AWS. And I thought again, Microsoft presenting that to us, who are all Microsoft guys, looking at this, and they chose AWS as a demo. I'm like, that shows to me that showed two things. First of all, the amazing capability of the product, which means we can bring the familiarity of Azure amazing managed instances or SQL managed instances to another provider. That's one thing, but also shows strength and power in terms of like how much they believe in the product, that if we can demo it on a competitive platform and people will still come to us, that was like a statement of intent for me. Like look at us. We are Microsoft. We've just created something that everyone would want, and we don't even care that you run your EKS as I think it's called in the AWS world for the Kubernetes cluster management, and we can run it. We can manage it for you. And that will bring you this is the enablement service for everything else. Once you're in that Microsoft ecosystem, they embrace the multi-cloud, they embrace hybrid, and that is the link that will bring all of those other services. But just specifically about data services again, why would you want it? Because again, who wants to manage a database? You just want as a developer or someone that requires at least some kind of database solution. Why would you want to install it on like a fat virtual machine, then manage the virtual machine operating system, patch it, and have other, there's usually like 10, 15 people that needs to manage the whole solution because there's networking involved, there is this involved, there's OS patching, there's compliance, security, blah, 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 blah. All of those craziness. With this, you literally have a containerized database that you can consume. And I don't think anything else needs to be said at that because literally it's that it will be always auto managed, auto updated. It's secure because again under Kubernetes you have all the security that comes with the containerization in general, and then you can just literally use it as a service. The true way, not like the made up way that you can install a SQL on an IaaS VM and then provide yourself with a 1443 port and then use it. That's not as a service. That it's just like the good old way, but now you can have it anywhere, containerized and deployed at scale, fully resilient with how many pods you want to pretty much put. And you have replicas of them. They will be cycling on if you wanted to update, they will update one by one, making sure that the application is always has got access to the database. It's phenomenal. What was there not to like?
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much, Chris. So I would like us to close out with this now, Chris. There are some possible blockers, right, that I see when it comes to cloud migration that some of the new businesses, might be having, so to speak. So do you want to help with this? Yes, there are positives, right, to migrating to the cloud. But we have some, yes, few possible blockers that some business considering cloud migration might be facing or might face. Did you want to run us through a few of those blockers from your experience?
I mean, sure. I think that the biggest blocker that I see, and again, it's not going to be original. I think you've heard it probably 1,000 times, or maybe not. I don't know. It's the cultural shift. It's the cultural change within the company. Half the time, the technology will do what you want. Really, if you give it to the experts to guide you through the migration, to guide you through the use of the latest and shiniest technology, then you will reap benefits from it for sure. But even with the best intentions and the best technology out there, if the company itself doesn't embrace it, if there are still people who just think, oh, I just want a server, I just want it here in my data center next to me. That's what I know. That's what I'm familiar with. I want it on the CapEx. I just want to buy it, have it for 5 years or however many. That's when it's the biggest challenge in the cloud adoption, at least from the customers and the people that I spoke with in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years is the cultural change. The people still think it's not maybe secure enough, or maybe it is just too expensive. And sure, if you just lift and shift what you have on-prem and copy paste it into the cloud, whatever the cloud may be, you will have a bad day. So you can't just go and do a lift and shift migrations to the cloud if you really want to do it. I think that is the biggest challenge to get people who are, I want to say in power, but you get my point. Like the C-levels, the people who are making those decisions to then to kind of like transfer that whole knowledge down into the people who are actually doing it, or maybe suck it up from them because maybe they are in the know. But the whole organization need to change. They need to understand that we need to do something different now. That what even though the last 5 years or last 15 years what we were doing maybe seemed correct, but now we need to do it differently. And it will reap benefits because we don't need to run this SQL box 24/7. We have managed instances, for instance, that we could leverage. We don't need 20 of those VMs running all day, every day. We can just use a SaaS service that is available or a PaaS solution, or we can just containerize it instead of having 20 IIS servers, every single one being an individual VM, we can containerize it and have like 2 of them, but just replicas, and have multiple load balancers, utilize the content delivery network, traffic managers in Azure, and have it all distributed around the world without having to spend, I don't know how many people literally keeping the lights on. You can reduce the number of IT staff. And that is very scary. People are afraid of change. Like it's almost like a grief process, right? People just immediately reject it when they see, oh, we need to change the way we operate. There's a pushback. Like, no, we don't want to change. We just want this to be slightly cheaper, and I want the headache off my shoulders. So if you know what I mean. And then people just don't want to embrace it. That, I think that's the bigger issue to me. If I had to pick one thing, it's that. Then the second part of it is the lack of skill, right? You have the people who have been doing those physical or then virtual servers, so they did the P2V, they've done some virtualization, maybe they've done some on-premise cloud kind of sort of thing, but not really. And now they need to change, they need to learn new things. And some of them just don't really want to. And that's why there's such a big uptake in managed service providers who will help you through it. They will guide you either through the whole process in like end-to-end, literally move and modernize your application and help you with that, or just in individual parts when you need help. And people are afraid to ask for help as well. I'm sure you've seen this many times before, that there's some stubborn person there in a data center like, I know how to do everything. No one does. And if I say ever that I know everything, then please remind me that this is not true. It's a lie. No one in IT industry specifically, but even in general, like no one knows everything. There's so much product in quotes that comes out that no one can know everything. There are you have this, even you see in my area in Azure Stack Hub, even there, which is a niche within a niche, there's so much stuff that I could still learn about it. There's no end.
Yeah.
There is no ending. Every day is a school day, and that's scary to some people. That's definitely another things that the people are afraid of. People are afraid of losing their jobs as well. It's all about the automation, machine learning, AI. People are scared of that too. That's why the adoption of it, in my opinion, is so low, because it will automate us out of the job. No, the mundane things, the things that we shouldn't really be doing, because it's pointless for us to be doing it, because we make mistakes. We are just human beings. We can automate those things, and then it will allow the creativity of a human mind or human brain to shine when we can sit and in front of a problem and come up with some amazing ideas and solutions because we have time for it. Most of the IT departments with the traditional, say, legacy or heritage enterprise environments, they don't have the luxury to invent anything. They've usually been stuck keeping the lights on. 80% to even maybe 90% of their time is spent on just trying to make sure this doesn't blow up every other Tuesday, because they need to patch it, they need to maintain it, they need to do a hardware refresh. There is the switch that needs patching or rebooting, or the cable just someone just snapped the cable. All of that pretty much goes away, but that means that they can focus on the outcome, on the business outcomes, helping the business itself to achieve what it does. Because IT, unless you work in like an MSP or CSP like I do, at least currently, or that sort of business, when your job is to actually make it, most of those companies, that this is IT is just a means, it's a tool. So when they're spending so much focus on trying to make this tool better, it's like why you're not buying a better hammer every time you want to put a nail into something, right? Or you don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be buying a new hammer, new, like, I don't know, additional, I don't know what to do, like a shaft or something. There's this longer, shorter, bigger, wider. Every time you need to do something with nails, like, and that's what IT is currently in many places. They're trying to do it, like, look after the tool as opposed to focusing on the outcomes. And that's another thing that cloud can definitely make a massive improvement. Again, there's not every workloads fit in the cloud, which is why we have hybrid solutions. But what will make a massive difference. And that's the cultural shift, like I mentioned at the beginning of this rant, is what needs to happen. People need to start understanding what the benefits are, and there is plenty. And then it will finally make sense, and they will think about it and be like, got it. I don't need those servers next to me. And in my cases, in some cases we do, because that's why Stack is in general a thing, because some people do. But there is things we can do better. We can improve. We can automate. We can modernize, and that's what it's all about. But that's basically what I see. The whole adoption is halted because people just don't really understand it, or they don't want to understand it.
Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show with me today.
No, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. It's been super fun. Really appreciate it.
Okay. So, all right, this is where we're going to call it a close on today's episode of the Tech Talk with me, Kazeem. So remember, you can subscribe on the channel. So it's the Tech Talk Wednesday with Kazeem. And you can have a rewatch of this particular episode and the previous episode up on YouTube. So this is where we call it a close again today. So from myself and Chris, it's bye-bye, and let's do this again.
Happy Azure Stacking, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.